The reason why I invited them along tonight was because I just think Stuart is absolutely fantastic. He does so much behind the scene work, and I do say that, you know, that would be nothing without him, but of course, you know, everyone denies that. But he is really, really amazing, and he's there looking after the children. He does all the paperwork, he runs behind the scenes, and I just felt that we needed to invite him along tonight and give him some credit. So tonight's all about Stuart.
Don't know about that, Wendy, but okay, we'll work with that. We'll work on the run.
So it's the first night that they've presented together, and because I know they feel comfortable here and we all welcome them, that you know, it'll just be a really nice learning curve for everyone tonight. So please welcome them.
Okay.
So the magnificent women. So I was actually here, Malika, I know you were here, probably would have been 2.5 years ago now. And at the time, Wendy had asked me to come in and speak about social media, because that was something that I'd been doing a lot of for our business. So our business was not in its infancy stage, but Ultimate 48-Hour Author was developing a lot.
Sorry, Dali, you're just standing in front of the camera.
So it was developing, and I was there, and Wendy asked me to come into this space. Now, what I failed to ever share with Wendy was that wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. I didn't want to be the face of the business. My passion was the children and the family. And when we first discovered that a while ago, it almost threw everything of what we thought and what everybody else has always seen as, and what I love about hearing when you speak again, the masculine and the feminine. And so we worked out that it's okay to have both essences within you if you can harness it and do what works as a couple. So I'm very proud of what we were able to do together. So tonight, Natasha and I will just share a little bit about how we've managed to not only continue to grow stronger as a couple, but actually how we've been able to manage our children, manage the business, which has now grown, you know, to where it is now.
You can say where it is to give us more credibility.
It's grown to...
I like to talk numbers.
It's been a 7-figure business that we've been able to run, basically just Natasha and I, for the last 3 years in a row now, it's been. So yeah, so we'll take on a little bit of the journey, so where it began, how we met, and then obviously what a lot of people, and Wendy wanted us to speak through, is our new book, which is going to be launched, literally it's just headed off to the printers yesterday, Guilt-Free Parents. Because I know, as a parent, with that feminine energy and being, I like to call myself now, I just came up with the title, by the way, while we were at the dinner. So, CEO of Denman Corp, Family Division. She's CEO of Denman Corp, Business Division. Does that make me any less of the importance? Does it make her any less of the importance? It doesn't. Because without one, you can't have the other. So it's all going to be talking about how the energy flows, how we manage it, how we obviously keep ourselves sane, dealing with 3 children under 8 while we were growing up through the business as well. So we'll take you on a few little things.
Yeah.
Nat, did you want to jump in anywhere here?
Well, just because this is the opening slide, yeah, so the book is 2 weeks away from print, and we decided to write this because so many people ask us how we do it. We didn't do this as a business building strategy, even though I think it'll have a positive impact on our business, because people will kind of go, okay, that's them as parents, what else do they do? And kind of sometimes there's clever ways of getting people to find out more what you do, which is Ultimate 48-Hour Author. And yeah, in case you can't read this, it's got a stamp up here and it says selfishness recommended. And then obviously the tagline is love your children, build your empire, fulfill your desires. So we're very excited. This will be Stuart's very first book, thank God, because I was like, come on, darling, you got to have a book under your name. Look what we do, you know. And he finally wrote it. But myself, 7 years ago, I started out as a life coach, as a few of us in the room are. And of course, I don't know about you, those of you that are life coaches, but usually there's a defining moment in your life why it pushes you to become one. Something happens, shit hits the fan, and from rock bottom, you think you go to be a life coach to help other people, but actually you need to help yourself first, right? And that moment was when Stuart lost a Specsavers franchise that we were a part of. He made a poor decision, and I was like, shoot, this only happens in the movies. I had no idea about this, and anyway, went on this journey, and the very first thing, as I said, that got my business off the ground, which a few of you know my story, was to write the first book that I did, which was the 7 Ultimate Secrets to Weight Loss, which was a mindset-focused book with all the coaching principles and my psychology background. I have a degree in psychology and psychophysiology, and that's the thing that took the business from $7,000 in the first 12 months to
32.
In 90 days of the book coming out, to a fully booked coaching practice. And the next year was the 6-figure year. And that's where the product development and the evolution of all of this. I mean, there's a bigger story to this that I share at my half-day workshop that I'll tell you about later on tonight. But now we're on to the 8th book, lots of books written, over 200 people we've helped in the last 3.5 years. So this particular brand that we run has been the last 3.5, nearly 4 years. Yesterday we came home from our 17th retreat. Brooke over there just attended it, so we've been hanging around with her for the last 4 days now. Well, yeah, I know. And a rewind there, the last 3.5 years, I would say, we've also lived out, finally got to that ultimate life and dream life, because it took a lot of hard work. Stuart was not on board fully into the business probably till about 2 years in. He managed to quit his day job 2.5 years in. We're nearly going to celebrate 5 years doing this just totally by ourselves, no backup. So we wrote the book, and we're going to be taking through strategies of every chapter that we wrote and what it's all about. So let's get into it. What do you reckon? Look at this. Let's talk about boobs. All right, so boobs, babies, and business. I might start off this one.
It's probably appropriate.
All right. I chose the photos that I used in the book at the beginning of every chapter, so that way I don't like to have lots of words nowadays on my slides. I just like to talk really naturally, because I speak at 100 events a year, so I'm over PowerPoint. I so hate, it's my worst job that I could do. But my goal when I had my first baby, so the first baby we had it, I was going to say out of wedlock, but no, out of business wedlock, you know what I mean? I wasn't in business. You love the new sayings we're inventing? Like, we're doing it right on the spot. Yeah, baby one, Judd, he's 8.5 now. The business is 7 and a bit. Right? And so we had him, and when the business loss happened, my goal when I became a mum, they said breastfeeding is so important. And I was like, okay, you got to do it for a year. I'm going to commit until its first birthday. That's what I'm going to do. And that's the commitment that I made if I was ever going to have any more children. By the way, Pauline seeded this idea in my head. As I was having my first baby, I was saying, I'm only having one, because I was an only child. And Pauline said, this is years, and you'll hear about the day job. She said, never say never. Woman of 4 children, and now I've got 3. Anyway, the last 2 kids were done through the business growth. That was crazy. Everything I did was between breastfeeds. Everything. Networking event, go home and breastfeed. Talk to a client, go back and breastfeed. Go traveling interstate. Sometimes my mum had to look after the other 2 while we went to do the half-day event in Adelaide and Canberra, and he would stay there with the baby in the hotel room, and I would pop in and out. And when I had to travel interstate for less than 48 hours, I would leave the baby home, and I would leave enough feeds for the 48 hours. Can you imagine how many feeds that is? 7 a day. Do you know how I did it? January that year, because the baby was born in November, I pumped out a feed for the whole month, 1 a night for 30 days, which meant I built up stock in the freezer. So when I would go away, I would replenish that by pumping, and I would come home and put it in the freezer, and the ones that I used at home, so none of them ever had any formula. And people go, God, that's commitment. You should have seen when I used to leave the milk in hotel fridges. Like a couple of times I forgot it. And I was in tears, liquid gold left behind. You should have seen on planes, like they had to store it in fridges, and then the flight still ate, so they would take it to the staff room of Virgin and all this stuff. Those are the kind of things I did, but I'd made it. I made 3 years breastfed, 3 babies, and still everything I managed to do. And I believe Stuart raised baby number 3. I literally came for the boob, and nothing else. Like he stayed with her at home because he was no longer in a day job. Baby 1 and 2 he was, but baby 3 he was home. So I was like doing the stuff, and I would just come, do the feeding, and just continue doing what I did. Do you want to give your spin on this?
Often gets referred to as your daughter. Okay? Because it's very easy for Natasha just to say, I raised the first 2. They're the angels. Baby 3, it's always going to have a few more. So let's just rewind. So when a man becomes a dad for the first time, okay, there's a lot of things that they experience in their head when all of a sudden the baby comes along, because they do get dropped down the pecking order. Okay, women don't mean to do it, it is just a natural thing. All of a sudden, baby is the number 1 importance, and the male tends to be just that secondary side. They're still very important, and it happens. And the balance can take a little while to swing back, sometimes it never does. So I remember having a few conversations with some of my male friends at the time that had been through it a little bit before, and because I was, you starting to feel a little bit left out. And so how do you sort of be as involved when this baby, all that they want is the boob, and then they want to sleep, and then they want to do that. And so you've got to get involved. Number 1 thing that I now advise all other men on is, if you want to get connected with your children, is you have to be involved. Do as many different things as you can. So the one thing you can't do is breastfeed, unless we've all seen, what's that movie?
I don't know.
Meet the Fockers. We've never tried anything like that. But we had to come up with something, and I wanted to be involved, even though I was like Nat at the time. We never really thought we would be parenty, mumsy or dadsy parents. And then breastfeeding came along, and it's okay, she's going to do that, let me do everything else. But yeah, some of those challenges of that breastfeeding, I've never seen someone be as committed to that process.
And I literally stopped at 1-year birthdays.
Yep.
I would actually do it to their birthday, and happy birthday, see you later, I'm out of here.
It'd be like that. So it's the thing that out of that chapter, what I did want to share with the guys that are going to be reading this book, and for the women as well, how do you guys stay connected when that breastfeeding, when they're sharing something so intimate? It's just admire just how gorgeous it is, and some people will breastfeed, some people won't. But when they do, just to really, stay watching it isn't creepy, like it might sound it to people that don't have children or anything like that, but you can see that love and connection that they have, and it just helps you feel connected to them, because you're helping that baby into the world as well. Obviously, you're 50% of it, of doing that. So it's challenging juggling that. And one of the key takeaways is that for people that are going through it was not to let the fact that you're breastfeeding stop the business growth. We hear this time and time again with people that ask us, well, I'm a mum now, I can't do anything in business. You can, if it's important enough to you. So it's always just finding those times to choose.
I also picked breastfeeding because I thought I was lazy, like I just prepare bottles and clean them. That's too much work. I hate cooking or anything like that. So it made it really easy, but also I was not sleep deprived. With breastfeeding, I actually slept with my baby still at least 6 months old. Like I would just jump over it. Like I would do this side, I would continue sleeping. Like I learned, the best thing I learned in the hospital is when one of the midwives taught me to breastfeed laying down. The best thing ever. And then it'll wake up again, and I'll jump over the other side in a big king size. And literally I was not sleep deprived with baby 2 or 3, and it was super awesome. So we've done it, it's possible. And Stuart always, I don't do bath time, I didn't do any of those other things. He always took on that. And as a mum, I just allowed people to help me. That's the thing. It's like a lot of people, I can do it best. I go, stuff this, everyone help. I'm happy to sit here and just give my boob. All right, number 2 is not a mumsy mum. I meet a lot of women who feel so guilty because they love their career, they want to be driven, and I wrote in this chapter that there's this shame to admit that actually I love my business, kind of it's higher on my list of values than my family. Like I still obviously would love my children, and I would do anything if there was anything wrong with them, but I'm totally obsessed with business. It's so interesting for me, it's so entertaining for me. Whereas Stuart, it's so entertaining for him to sit on the floor and play for hours, you know, building blocks and making up stories and all that sort of stuff. So in this chapter I talked about the fact that you don't worry if you're a career woman. Everyone's a different mold, right? And embrace that, because that's where your wealth and your passion and your fulfillment is hidden, right? If it's not in sitting on the floor and playing with the kids, well, it's not really quality time. I still have quality time, and I love one-on-ones with my kids, like going to the movies, and we have different things that we do that we both like. It's no point forcing myself to make it up. What about you, Dal? What did you talk about? By the way, hang on, we didn't tell you this. We have no idea what we spoke about in each other's chapter. Like we have a his and a hers section, and in the introduction of this book we wrote, by the way, we have not read each other's stuff. And I'm only going to read his stuff in 2 weeks' time when it comes to print. I made sure the editor tell me, I go, does it flow? Because I have actually no idea what he's written, and you've got a bit of an idea of what I write because I've talked a lot about all these things, but I have no idea what he wrote. What did you write in this chapter?
What did I write? Just the difference, obviously, in how magnificent all women are. The relationship I had before Natasha was a long-term relationship. It was 7 years with a woman who would have been that absolute mumsy mum. That was her, all she felt as though she was put on this earth was to have children. She was 7 years older than me, so it was something that she was always, wanted to have for her, it was wanted to happen to her earlier. And I was not interested. I was the one that wanted to be out partying, doing all of the lifestyle that a 20-year-old guy does at the time. Was very happy with my career at the time. I'd just been going up through in the optometry business. So I'd started off, my qualification was an optician. So I was actually able to grind and manufacture the lenses that a few of you are looking through. That was my background. And then I got into management, so I started managing the different size stores of OPSM as we worked the way through. Very happy doing that. But there was something that, again, who knows, circumstances change. And I met Natasha, and the minute I met her, the relationship was over for 18 months beforehand. I was still living with her as friends at the time, or roommates more than anything else. But then I met someone like her, and she just put out this vibe that we were at the same spot in our lives. Kids weren't sort of on the radar. We probably still knew we had a couple of years that we wanted to just live and travel and do a lot of things. I hadn't done any traveling before. Then we almost sat there one night, and there was two friends of ours, Con and Vesna, that we were talking about, come on, it might be time to do some of this. And I just never forget, he made a comment to me. He said, well, if you don't get married or have kids, what are you going to do, sit around and play tennis the rest of your lives? Because this time we were doing a lot of tennis. And I was thinking, okay, let's give this child thing a go. And I just knew, it really was. It was, I was never going to have one. I was one of these guys that was never going to have a children.
And I just wanted to see what it was going to be like. And that's why I said to you, I'm only having one.
You had 3. So
Number 2 was, oh my God, this takes too much playing around and need to give it a friend so it would entertain it. That was the reasoning for number 2. And number 3 was Stuart such a good dad? He seems to really love this. If he looks after it, I'll have another one. I'll go through the first stages. That was 3 reasonings, not because we were all ever had the clucky thing happen. Never.
But what I found, there's a lot of judgment around this. So people are generally a bit older. So my father, different generation, of course, my dad's now 74. And so his was straight away, well, if Nat was saying, I'd tell him, I'm looking after the baby, she's off doing something, going to an event or doing whatever it was. And he'd just classic thing, well, shouldn't she be at home? She's a mother. And we still get judgment today. He won't change that perception. Nat says she's got business and she's heading interstate, I suppose you're going to look after the kid. Or babysit. If I hear someone say again that dad babysits their kid, I don't get angry, I'll slap them. I'm not babysitting my child, I'm parenting my child. I'm with them. So that was something.
What about the old lady at the supermarket? He took Zara. Zara was 5 days old and he took her to buy stuff, and I was doing business.
The other 2, no problems. Took her up in the stroller, and this woman, maybe about 60, she walks up, she looks at the baby and she looks at me with a shocked look on her face. She goes, where's the business.
Yeah.
And I didn't think quick enough. I would have said, oh, well, I'll just run screaming away. I wish I had advanced enough. But I actually just said, it's not my first, it's my third, you know. I think I'm quite capable of looking after this child. But there's still that judgment. And I was getting it from my friends that were in a different space.
You should have said he's at home.
All of these things when you pop into your head
afterwards.
Stolen, I reckon.
I just found it.
Yeah. And as you can see, this the reason I chose this photo was I was 38 weeks pregnant with baby number 3. I know. Yeah, well,
good angle.
There's another photo of that exact same. Move down for a sec. There. Can you see my stomach here? It's a dress that probably I'm standing. I had the baby 10 days after that photo, and that was one of the group book launches that we had. All right, help is out there. Quality over quantity, I would say. My gorgeous mum, this is my mum. She brought me into Australia. She showed us. She brought me into Australia at the age of 14. She was here 2.5 years before me. So we were separated that whole time, and it was really tough growing up. Kind of felt like an orphan because she was also the only woman that was divorced at the time in Macedonia because WOGs don't divorce, right? And she divorced my dad when she was 2 because of violence and all that sort of stuff, and then tried to set up a life here so I would come across. So for those of you that don't know me, I didn't speak English before I was 14. So, and I still wrote all these books and speak all over the world now. But my mum is our biggest supporter, and she got angry at us yesterday when we came home from Retreat Brook. You know, we had the Las Vegas Ultimate 48-Hour Author branded t-shirts, and she cracked, it was half joke, half serious. She said, why didn't you make me a branded t-shirt when you were in Las Vegas? Who do you think? I've been going for 17 retreats looking after your kids, because she comes and looks after them while the retreat's from Friday to Sunday. She goes, I'm part of the Ultimate 48 Hour. I go, oh my God, I didn't think it was that important. She wants her own, team. So she's part of the team, and she's actually looking after them tonight. She lives just in 10 minutes from here. We believe she's high quality support over quantity. We don't have any other family. His dad very, very rarely would help out. Being 74, the kids need to be a certain age when he steps in. But yeah, we love that, and I think family, we've managed to not even have a babysitter or a nanny, even though my mum works full time. She's still Monday to Friday. She's got a full, she's got her own life, but with the juggle between the two of us and her stepping in, I would say 10% of the time, that's what I spoke about anyway. How do you juggle finding support and friends and other people who you can manage, because it was so messy in the first 3 years. Even once, can you believe it? I became very close to my chiropractor and her assistant, and when baby number 3 was super young, like when they'd sleep a lot, I went networking and left her in a basket and my chiropractor, and went to my BNI meeting and came back and picked her up. And they were happy to do it and all this sort of stuff. And I just juggled, and that assistant of the chiropractor became a little bit of we swapped some services, like she would come look after my baby, and eventually I paid her to clean my house and all this sort of stuff. But we juggle. We haven't had an official person that, I don't know, you have a nanny and where you team her from, but
No,
yeah.
in India.
Oh,
When I was doing teacher training. So
Wow.
Like any program, but just like you, somebody you meet.
We just nothing really superficial. And we send our kids into care Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so the baby's always Monday is the food shopping day. Stuart juggles her in the food shopping and tries to fit in some work when she sleeps. And then we do hardcore work, and we don't work Friday, Saturday and Sunday any longer. So what did you talk about in this?
I actually can't remember what.
Can't remember, but it's probably about.
Yeah, it would have just been the difference in generational things is what I see first of all. So my parents divorced when I thought it was 6, but my dad keeps telling me it was 9. I've got to ask my mum, she'll remember that when we see her. The difference was, in Macedonia, they've got a saying, in a lot of other European cultures and African cultures, is it takes a whole village to raise a kid, and they're often looked after by the grandparents, the aunties, whoever else is in there. We didn't have that. We didn't. I
Well, in Macedonia, all the grandparents and the community, like you, the parents have to work full time. Both parents have to work full time, otherwise you cannot survive. And it's weird, like, you know, how here the parents really have to fend for themselves.
So I know what I put in here. So why we had to find the help was because as I was working out where we best sat with the roles and everything that we were doing, we even had a discussion 5 or so years ago. Do I just be the total stay-at-home dad and not, that's the only thing I'll do? But then, you know, after thinking about it for a week or two, it was like, there's no stimulation in there unless you can find your own thing. Now, I'm not saying being a stay-at-home mum is bad or wrong. Males still have some form of that masculine in them that they feel as though they do need, they're searching for something, they need to have something which is their own thing. And so when we had a business coach a while ago, that was one of the things I kept thinking I needed to push for myself was, you've got to have your own thing. I can't do, I've got to be, you know, I was thinking I won't even help her with this business, I'll do something else, do my own business, my own thing. But again, then you just realise that other people can help you in that sense to enable you to then go and do your own thing. And fortunately enough, we found that the thing that I enjoyed doing was an aspect of what we've been able to develop and do together. So
you have an amazing role, like, he does a lot of our content marketing. He does the Facebook management team, like he takes care of all of that. And yes, we have a virtual assistant who does the admin and really basic tasks, you know, from, as you say, remotely. But you've really, like, every year for the 5 years I've seen him step up more and more and more and more and add so much value to the business that, like you say, I could have done it by myself, yes, but the amount of value that you have brought into the business and how the things that you're now responsible for, definitely cannot be the way it is now. All right, here's our old lives. So Pauline and I worked in this store, 10 years ago? 10 years ago. This is OPSM Epping. I managed that store for 5 years. I was with OPSM for 11.
That's true.
Yeah.
This is Stuart. Look at him. And this is Specsavers Epping. I know. So Pauline and I know each other now probably 15 years, and we've spent many a time just sitting and having a coffee and trying to, you know, make the business profitable. And so I was with OPSM 10 years, and then with Specsavers for about 2.5 until I fully was able to leave. So I stayed with Specsavers until 13 months of my business. And Stuart obviously had that franchise, which is where the debacle happened, right? And then why I wrote this chapter and what this chapter was about is, how did we transition? When was the right time to quit, right? And leave it. So for me was, I wanted to at least replace that income. I think I was making, this was when I had already moved to Specsavers, and I was making maybe $600 a week clearing, like, because I only worked 3 days a week once I had the first baby, like a Sunday, a Monday and a Thursday, and I had lots of loadings and all this sort of stuff. So it was a really good pay for 3 days work. But I wanted to cover that day job income. And I still wasn't brave enough when I did that, so I wanted to double it until I could be brave enough to hand in my resignation. So when I was making about $1,000 a week from the business, I walked in and handed in my resignation in the middle of my maternity leave with baby 2. And with Stuart, we needed to obviously have a business that was at least generating $2,000 a week, so at about 100,000, like past 6 figures, for him to be able to quit his day job. And he was forced. He was at the last job was Barbecues Galore in Preston, managing that, and it was Christmas, and Christmas was the craziest time of the year for Barbecues Galore. And 2 Christmases he was just wrecked from them, about to enter the 3rd Christmas, and they gave him an ultimatum to move to Chadstone from Preston, and we were in Greensboro, so a whole hour extra driving both ways. He was already out of home 10.5 hours, he would have been out of home 12.5, 13, and I'm running the business around all of his roster. And we go, okay, you either move, they said, or quit.
Thinking that no one would quit, they made every manager move to a different store, because even though our store was performing really well, others weren't. So that
he was one of their best people, yeah.
CEOs decided, we'll see if it's the management or if it's whatever. And so everyone else, just being company people, of course, they didn't want to lose their job. They didn't have anything like this. So everyone else said yes, and I was the one that threw it all because I said, well, if you're going to make us do this, screw it. We'll go.
Yeah, and so we didn't know our numbers because we usually know our numbers, but I said just quit. And we had just launched licensing for the Ultimate Weight Loss brand, and he did, and it was a leap of faith. But then when I went back to look at the numbers, because we said we need to maintain that 2 grand level for 3 months consistently. So to know that it's not just a fluke and we had a good month and whatever. And when I went back to the figures, it was that time. It was right on that time where we had been consistent. And January that year, the first 2 months, we generated 2 years worth of salary in sales. So that was like, oh my God, thank God. You know, it was like, because the licensing really took off, and that year was multiple 6 figures the following year. But it took very much a journey of his own to get to the business mindset, because I had gone 2.5 years prior to him, been networking, got comfortable with standing in front of people. Just, I thought, oh, it'll be so valuable having him in the business. You know, we can now like do so much more, sell so much more and all that. Yet he had his own journey to go through mindset, to work out how to go network. I couldn't believe how uncertain and nervous he was, and I was like going, oh, I didn't expect this. So this is where I say I've seen the growth so much, and he's caught up to me now. But yeah, tell your version of.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask. What was your mindset when you left, and how did you do the transition?
I was going to jump in there. So the biggest thing, and this is for everybody that's had another career and then we embark on this wonderful world of entrepreneurship or business, whatever we want to call it. A lot of people don't like to relate to that word entrepreneur. We do, but that's all good. But if it's a business. So a couple of examples I'll give is, let's use that barbecues galore example. So I was always in big box retail after the optometry. So I managed Melbourne Airport departures lounge, the whole departures concourse. So that was running 120 staff on 24/7 shift work. So we would sell anything from cigarettes to $5,000 bottle of alcohol to makeup to everything, you know, in duty free. I managed a lot of different staff, and sales is one of the big things. I always made sure that we would drive sales, build teamwork. But I knew, because when you're working for someone else, there is always something in you that says, okay, it's time to go home now. That person that's come in, you're not going to give them that same attention. I'm going to want to shut the doors at 5 o'clock. You know, even though we were competitive, and I was a very competitive person when that, and I actually had 2 OPSM stores separately managing. We'd always have competitions amongst them. So if there was a reason to try to eke out that extra customer, that extra dollar, we would do it. But if things were quieter or you had somewhere else to be, someone walks in the door, sorry mate, we're closed. You can't do that when it's your own business. You just can't do it, because you're reliant on that, you bringing that person in. You're not reliant on the company or some other people to make the sales or pay you the salary. So that was the biggest thing that I noticed, is just having to go from that, actually really taking ownership. Because in the past, when you're working for someone else, you realistically don't blame someone else. It's pretty easy to do. We don't need to, but their marketing shit. You know, they've got crappy sales. They're always putting a stupid thing on product. My staff.
Keep sending us to training.
You can always do whatever, but you have to really, you can only look within when you're doing your own business.
It's the biggest personal development journey.
It really is, and it took a while to start to care. And I guess because we took off on a bit of an explosion at the time, I guess also what I got, a little bit complacent. Sugar money over here. Do all of this stuff. Yeah. I'll just stay at home and it will all be good.
And they'll go, stop hiding behind the computer. We need to be on the...
It that drove that. There has to be something an awakening within you that makes you go, there's got to be something else. So that is the biggest journey. That's still what I see. Whenever a new business owner comes into either our Facebook groups, or they contact us and they're wanting help, and first thing I say, you've got to go on your own journey, and you've got to start looking within and not blaming outside influences. So don't blame your Facebook group, or don't blame that you're not making sales, because Nat has a great saying that she probably won't share it here. If something's not working within the business and you're not making sales or getting the results that you want, all you really need to do is you generally stop doing what you know works. And what works in all the businesses that you're in? Going out, meeting people face to face. Hi Devika, how are you? Being interested, talking. So it's networking, it's getting out from behind your computer, it's putting offers out there, putting content pieces out there, because how else is anyone going to find you unless you're producing content? We normally absorb 12 pieces of content before we decide to work with someone. So if you're not having these touch points and getting out there meeting people, that's another thing that you'll generally find, that you're not going to have anyone coming into your world. So that's the number one thing, mindset shift from employee to entrepreneur, that I wanted to share.
Cool. From fear to faith. Okay, so this one was a little bit of a mindset that every single person has fear. Every single person, except we come across it a lot more when we're business owners. It's like, oh my God, everything's falling apart, nothing's happening. And really learning that focusing on faith, you cannot focus on both. They're in different sides of the brain. Fear lives in this side, let's say. It's not true, but let's say it's here. And faith is here. And gratitude is here. And appreciation is here. So this chapter very much talks about how do you switch off that. Because the fear will prop up, doesn't matter whether you're a 0 figure and a 5 figure, 6, 7, 8. All successful people have talked about fear. Yeah, and this is where, when I go into fear, it's very much about anxiety, what's going to happen in the future. I'm very futuristic. One of my biggest strengths are to be a visionary and futuristic, where Stuart is very much an adapter, which is very present to the now. So that's why when I start to freak out, oh my God, what's going to happen in 6 or 12 months' time if this keeps going on like this? He'll go, what do we need to do today? He brings me right to the present, and that's where I think that is a good match of what we do. But then we need me, because otherwise we won't be planned out till the end of 2018 like we are now, and I know exactly when my sales booms will be and all that kind of stuff. What did you say here?
Yeah, so that was going to share, I think I shared exactly that as well.
Yes.
So fear is something that stops a lot of us doing a lot of different things. It stops us having all of these opportunities, and it's what stops a lot of people telling their story, what we're having.
Oh, yes.
Writing their book.
Yeah.
It's our words aren't good enough. Who cares? Who cares about my story, my expertise, my experience? And that's the thing that paralyses, and it does so in our business as well. So some people look at Nat, and especially the way she is now, and think she wouldn't have a care in the world. She's got no problems. She runs a very successful business. She's got a supportive husband, kids, blah, 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 blah. But, she has the same fears that everyone else has. Now, if she's gone to 2 events and she hasn't made a sale, and she can't find any of these authors that want to share their story, she starts getting into this spot. And so it happens, and I like the fact that, she's got that futuristic vision, but also that we balance each other, because I can say, calm down, we've got all of these invoices coming in, it's going to be the next event. But when you're on this bit of journey solo, or your partner's not supportive, or you don't have anyone to share that with, that's why having that connection, and you guys having this little networking group, having people within it, they're the ones that you've really got to be tapping into for that support.
Yeah.
Not everyone's fortunate enough that they can communicate like us, so doing it amongst yourselves, but that's sometimes hard as well. It's hard to say, I'm stressing out, I'm not having any sales coming in, to be able to do that. So if someone ever does honour you with that, and they do share that with them, understand how important it is that they've actually done it. So give them the time to be listening, and really give them your full ear. Because sometimes we just don't know how important listening is to that person. Sometimes that's all that they actually need, because they can't get it anywhere else. I know I'm speaking to a group of women here, but if you've got men in your life, that's one of the biggest reasons why men are killing themselves. I'm not saying that lightly. It's because they don't feel as though they have anyone that they can just share anything with.
Yeah. 2 on the weekend, they're renting the trees. So.
Yep. So it really is. It's just having that. I always say, if you can see that they've got something, sometimes just ask them the question, how is everything? That's enough to get them going. But if someone does honour you with that and shares it with you, let them get it all out. Don't just look at your watch and rush off.
Well, for the first 2.5 years, Stuart wasn't active as much. I was reading, going to personal development, seminars, doing all of those things, and being coached myself and growing. and it is networks like this that I became a member of, and I would go, my rule always I share is 2 events every week, you know, that I walk into a room, and just by having conversations and being with people I feel the support. And yes, now I can, that we are on the same journey and also on the similar mindset level, because now we find it very difficult to, you know, find people who you know, are above us. We just have become that minority, and we always want to look for people or rooms where we can be the dumbest people in the room, like not dumbest, but like, you know, just learn from others as well. You know, but I still think anyone can teach us something of value, and I always listen. And often I have found my best business buddies like Donna Brown, who we did the Ninja Business Chicks book together. Like, we were really besties in those first years and really like shared those deep dark moments. And now Francesca Moy, who's my sister from another mother, you know, she's been she's now catching up to where I am, which means we have the same problems and we share a lot. Yeah. Could you do a live stream at some stage for 5 or 10 minutes on my personal profile?
Let me know.
I know yeah, any time over the next sort of half an hour. No rush. Okay, discovering wealth through values. I want to point you guys to I don't know, has anyone heard of the Dr. John DeMartini values determination process? Do you love it? It's really cool. When I did that, and if you haven't, you can Google it and you'll probably find the 12 questions and do the exercise for yourself. But when I did that in the first 12 months of my business, or 18 months, I realized my top 3 values were business, education of self and others, and money. And then my family was nowhere in those top 6. Right now it is travel and connecting, and families climbed up higher because our values can change. But those first few years, it was just like, and then we did it on Stuart at the same time, and his was family, home, children. And because all the answers, you know, how there's commonality. And that's why I had put this picture here, is because Stuart's wealth in his life and what he's driven by is lifestyle, and I'm driven by challenge. And I always say, if you tap into your biggest, your wealth is hidden in your highest values, no matter what that is. So, what did you talk about in this one?
In this one, yeah, 100% the same.
The same stuff, yep.
When we were trying to fight, again, touching on what we spoke about a little bit earlier, when we were trying to do things the opposite, so we'd expect Nat to do all of this stuff and I'd be expected to do that, we actually we got to a point where we literally just stabilised and we couldn't see things happening, because I didn't want to be doing certain things, she didn't want to be doing certain things. One, we felt obliged to do them, which is what we thought it should be. Yeah. But again, it's why I love Brooke's book. It's saying just because she should be doing this doesn't mean that we have to do it. We choose to do what. And it took a lot of communication to get through those points, and a lot of, you know, rough moments where we're saying, if your value is this, does mine have to be that? That's another question I get asked a lot. So if you're in a couple, in a relationship, and one person's values is this, and that's where you often get a lot of non-alignment, unalignment,
misalignment,
thank you, and that can be a big thing. So it's also not just saying because your values are this, mine have to be that. Understanding and just accepting what the other person's are, and then working out how it best suits you as a couple and as a family, and loving and understanding and respecting them really is the best way to go in this position. So there would be times I would not do this in a million years. Now, unfortunately, I can actually do it. So I know that I need to do it a little bit more. Natasha gets her kick out of this. So if she's at home and she's not seeing people or getting out, connecting, making a difference, empowering, I hate that word empowering, but empowering women or whoever it is meant to do other things, she starts to actually get a bit antsy.
I get depressed.
It's not that great to be with.
No. I was so bored the weekend before the retreat weekend. I was like, oh my God, I can't sit around anymore. Where are the people? Bring me the people.
I'm the extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
So I get my energy from myself. So after I'm with a big group of people, I just love to be able to just excuse myself, love you, give you all a hug, and off I go. And I'll recharge that way. Whereas that's the opposite. If she's by herself, she has no energy. So getting in here.
Actually, I'm the opposite. I'm introverted extrovert because I am actually an intellectual introvert. I told that people at retreat because the master of non-verbal communication told me that. And if I was sitting where you are right now and someone else was presenting, I will hardly make a peep. I usually don't speak until I feel it's safe, and I generally am not like a blah 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 person or ask lots of questions, be very curious. I'm very introverted intellectually, but I churn everything in my head, and then once I say it, he said, once you say it, it's like, that's like, it's done. People go with what you say. And so, yeah, you're totally right, but we never said it that way.
And the most important bit that I shared in this is if what you're trying to monetize doesn't align with your number one values,
you're not going to monetize.
Ever going to make a success out of it. No matter how much you think you're going to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, you're not. So really start to think, how can I monetize my values? It's a great way of looking at it. So think what you value.
The second one I wanted to share. Yeah, the second one that I wanted to share is figure out what your top 5 strengths are. And another tool you can tap into is the Gallup Strength Assessment. It's called the Clifton Strength Finder. And I figured out that my highest strength, and it's $15 US to do this test, but it's very, very comprehensive and amazing. And I figured out, this is how we found out that I was futuristic, a maximizer, an achiever, and Stuart, that he was like, you know, more in the present. Oh yes, am I live streaming? Okay. Yeah, but my highest value was winning others over. And doing events and doing what I do, being a public person, is like where I just tap into that, and it just works. This is why when we went to the US 2 months ago, it ended up, you know, working really well, and we got the same conversion rate as in Australia in a fully cold market, because I had this thing where I can win others over. This lady who's coming to speak here next month, Rosemary McCallum, she's become a very dear friend, and you know, she's done some work with me, and we always go to lunch. We're actually going to lunch next Monday. But she said, she talks about